America's backbone was built on blue-collar business grit, grind, and muscle. This is where you stop working for the business, and the business starts working for you.
Hey, Blue Collar Millionaires, Chris and I back again for another podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about some mindset stuff and who's around you, who's in your network. So quick exercise, you guys have all heard this, but let's actually do it. And let's talk about, Chris, how ours has changed and is it actually true? And that's the 5 people around you. And we're not talking about your wife and your kids. The 5 people, your friends, that you spend the most time either a combination of talking to, texting, doing Zooms with whoever. Mm-hmm. If you really looked at what you thought their income was, and let's face it, you can pretty much figure out people who are that close to you, what their income is, whether they tell you or not. And they say you're the average of those 5 people. I have found that to be absolutely true.
Same.
I've always had one that was an outlier on both things. So I would always have one that was making considerably more and one that was making considerably less, but there would be 2 that were extremely close to me. And here's a crazy thing that in 2007, when I went down and I was struggling and I had to get my first job and I was doing it, do you know that my circle did change and it went down? When I look back, that absolutely happened. Why? Probably because I was attracting that, probably because I was working with people like that.
Yeah.
And I was watching a lot of the habits they did. There was more drinking, more wasting time. Even though I wasn't necessarily wasting time, those are the people I was around. And now at 51 and all the effort I've made to be in networking groups, and I'm making, I'm doing really well. I do have, again, the outlier. My outlier would be probably a low, and on the low end would be something most people would be super excited to be at. But I do have one guy who's way over $10 million a year. So it goes. Now, all I did was shift it and push it over. And it wasn't really even done by design. It's just how it works. Chris, what have you seen in your own life?
Dude, I remember a decade ago where I would, after I finished the work that was on the schedule for that day, there was no sales calls or anything like that was put in to finish the day out. Cornhole, beer drinking, and pot smoking would start. and it's like, well, I got my work out of the way for the day. And as soon as I decided I was ready to level up, that friend group changed 100%. And most of them are still doing that exact same thing I was doing a decade ago. And they're still in the exact same place. Me, on the other hand, it'd probably be a fun strategy just to see how many multiples I've put on my financial situation. But I remember when I got into a real estate group that had a bunch of individuals with multifamily apartments and business owners that were trying to level up and start to invest in apartment complexes. And I remember thinking, man, I'm not even qualified to be in this room. And literally in a matter of 12 months, I was a player in the room. And then 2 years later, I was acknowledged as a player in the room. And 3 years later, I'm getting on the stage in that room on that person's platform to talk as a thought leader in that space. And this is how, when you get in the right rooms, you start to level up. And it's because what you think and speak about, you start to attract. And all I started thinking and speaking about was growth, was money, was investment, was business, was mindset. And so those type of people started coming around. I started attracting them and they were attracting me. And we had conversations, which kept me motivated, which kept me pushing. And when I saw someone ahead of me, I was asking, what are you doing? How did you get there? And it made me motivated, because when you're the biggest in the room, you feel accomplished already. So it's kind of like, well, what's the point? Unless there's a nagging pain in your life that's making you push. And at some point financially, the pain starts to get it loses its volume. It's not as loud. When you're broke and it's loud. So there's some motivation there. But once you get above where your bills are being paid, where you can really start making some impact in the world around you, that loud voice, that pain is not as loud. So you've got to stay around people that are pushing, because what happens when the economy goes down and you're just sitting comfortable because you didn't level yourself up and get in the right room? I mean, in a matter of 3 years, when I look at the growth because I got in the right room, Kevin, I am blown away. I'm humbled, is really the correct word, at how much growth has taken place, because I didn't want to show up in conversation and them ask me what I got going on and it'd be the exact same thing from 3 months ago. I mean, that's embarrassing when you're in those type of groups.
Yeah.
You expect progress, they expect growth, because that's who they hang out with.
I've watched that with you, Chris, and I've had a similar thing where I got in masterminds and you don't know anyone, and you're pushing your comfort level. And then the next step is people start to know you. They're like, okay, this guy. And then they start to like, okay, this guy, if he's growing, right? We were both growing.
Yep.
He's a player.
Yep.
And then next thing you know, you're on the stage. You're a part of that. And I know that happened with you at Tim Broad's.
Yep.
And speaking of Tim Broad's, that last line you gave. So we used to meet quarterly he was the first mastermind I got in. And the first time or the second meeting, we all went around the room. What's our biggest problem? And mine was something about us getting a sales guy and everything. And then 3 months later, he gets to me and he says, hey, Kevin, what's your biggest problem? And I said, I think I'm good, Tim. And then he says, well, what happened with that last thing? And I remember saying to him, I said, yeah, I wasn't going to come back here in 3 months and tell you guys the same shit. Like, I knew that in myself. Like, there's no way I'm going to be, there's 30 guys in there, high level guys. They're all looking at you talking about your one problem for 10 minutes. I knew there was no way I was going to do that. Would 80% of them forgot about what I said? Yeah, but he actually didn't. So it's like it pushed me to do it. And I remember he went off to the next guy, and I said, man, I'm happy I solved that. And that's what you want to do. If you're hanging out with kind of low level guys who are getting drunk, you can have the same problem every day for the rest of your life. They do.
How many people how many times have you said, or probably not often now, I know it's not for me, but how many times in the past and how many times do you hear people talk about politics and the economy, and they just can't, it's hard to hire, it's hard to find good employees. Man, the president should be paying my gas prices because they're so high. Like, it's always someone else's fault. And it always seems like negative is coming out of their mouth, and that's all they focus on. It is the same crap every time. Like, there's never a different scenario. It's always an excuse. And I think it's because what you focus on grows. This is Tony Robbins' statement, I believe. What you focus on grows. And when we get in the right rooms, they're focused on progress. They're focused on solutions. They're focused on not what is the problem, but how do we fix it? And that's what happens in these when you're in the right environment. If you have something negative come out of your mouth, immediately everybody's trying to pop off solutions that's going to fix it. Nobody joins in and goes, man, I know, dude.
No one.
I don't know what we're going to do. The labor market, these millennials, they just won't work. I mean, that's the problem with America today. I have never heard that statement follow when someone says they have an issue with labor. It's immediately,
everybody in those
doing. Have you tried this?
Everybody in those groups is solution oriented. That's how they got there. That's how they got successful. In a nutshell, that's life. People who are complaining about Biden or Trump, and that's the reason they're not making money. It's like, Playboy, you weren't going to make money anyway. I've been around for so many presidents. I was working when George Bush Sr., that's when I started a company. That's when he was president, all right, back in 1990. And guess what I did? I make more money every year. It doesn't matter who the hell the president is. It doesn't matter if it's Obama, Trump, Biden. I'm making more money. That's just I call that a bag of excuses. I say that sometimes to my stepkids. I say, yeah, you got a bag of excuses. Like, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter if it's legit or not. What are you going to do about it? There are real excuses. The economy has shifted. Their interest rates are higher. All these things, they're real things. What are you going to do about it? Talking about it over and over and complaining about it with a small group that's what they do, that'll actually make it worse. All the guys in Dealmaker, all the guys I talk to, all solution, hey, this is what I tried, maybe this will work. And you get around people who actually come up with good ideas and solutions, and then you already were working on something, and sometimes that's the piece you do. And that just gives you a whole nother mindset. Chris, how many times have we done it? We just send each other a text and you're running something by, and maybe I had a similar thing. So I tell you what worked for me. And then I know you're talking to somebody else, maybe that's similar to me. I know you're not talking to those guys you were playing cornhole and drinking beer with, because they're not going to help you.
No, it's going to be, man, I know, man, I know. That's the kind of another little quick catchphrase, what you seek, you're going to find. And I identify these people very quickly now, mainly on social media is where I'll see them, since we, are part, we grow and manage this Blue Collar Millionaire Facebook group. And I'll see the people, and it seems like some people are just always trying to find a reason to discredit something. And those people that are always seeking out the negative, the ones that are always the doom and gloom, you can look, I already know they're not successful. I already know, because they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're seeking after it's like that's all they see. They don't see the possibilities. They don't see where they could go, what could be done. And there's a threshold to failure, but there is infinite possibility to success. There is so much money out there, so much opportunity, so much intelligence. There is just so much availability, but we kill our belief system if we start looking at what negatively could happen. And these type individuals, when you're I've had exercises in my life before where I will tell the people that are very immediate in my life and around me, and I'll say, look, we're not going to say anything negative, even if it's factual. Even if it is factual and it is real, we are not going to say it if it's negative. If you can't say it, then don't say it at all if it can't be a positive statement. So, to give an example, most people talk about the recession. 2024, we're going into recession. It's time for a market reset. I don't need to hear that shit. Everybody knows that. We've all heard it on every platform. So if we need to talk something real, then it's going to be, hey, how are we going to have ourselves stand out so that we are seen in no matter what economy? I didn't just state something negative that might pull down your belief system. I threw out a thought process that lets us brainstorm on how we lift ourselves up. So I'll have moments in my life where I say nothing negative. I just told my management team this. I started noticing a trend where we were talking about our field staff and all the things that they were doing wrong. And I said, hey, I don't want us to say anything else negative about anybody in this company. I don't care how true it is. If you're going to say something and because there's something negative, then it needs to be a solution. That's all we're going to talk about is solutions. So if we do something wrong, then what's the solution? Come in and say, hey, we need to increase our training. I see there's a need for it. Don't tell me why. Just say, I see there's a need for it.
It's so important to what you're listening to and what information you're taking in. I definitely probably by accident took in a lot of negative stuff when I was younger. Not necessarily being around negative people, but just taking it in. One thing I notice and kind of why a lot of people say our Blue Collar Millionaire group is great and positive is we delete any of the clown shit before it happens. You don't even see it. Somebody might have saw it and then it's gone. I had somebody message, hey, what happened to that comment? Did you delete it? I say, yeah, I got rid of it. I saw it. I used to sometimes get negative myself. I'd be on Instagram and I'd see all these, I'd be reading the comments and they're negative. I don't reply to them or anything. I'm not getting into it, but I'd almost feel my energy getting wrong. And I'm like, why am I reading comments on Instagram about this subject?
Yeah.
So when I'm in Blue Collar Millionaire, I want stuff to be put. I see people, they might have a pending comment because they haven't been accepted. I read it and it says, that's terrible advice, you idiot, or something stupid. I just block them right there. They never get to see the day of light. They thought they did something, but nobody saw it but me. And it didn't bother me because I just kicked you out. And I don't like, what's the point of that? There's no value. So being around really positive people, it's so contagious. And it's not about money, because sometimes people are like, oh, it's about money. You only want to hang around rich people. No, I want to hang around positive people who are doing stuff. I don't care if somebody had gone through hard times and they're rebuilding and they're on the, I love being around that energy. We know guys who, I don't know what everybody, we don't have any idea what everybody's making in, say, the deal maker, but we know they're positive. We know they're going to be making more money. And one way you could reframe the economy, because I've seen a lot of different changes in the economy over 30 plus years of owning businesses. And it was something my dad said. And then he told me this early on. He said, well, when I first started landscaping, he says, you're making money and it's supposedly a down economy. Guess what you're going to do in the good economy?
Right.
But he says, the truth is you find out who the players are when it's down, because when it's up, anybody can do anything. And he says, you'll see that over your lifetime. He's long gone now and he's been right. And we see that in real estate. Bobby Castro said this in a one-on-one meeting. He said, great, you made a lot of money in 2019 to 2020 in real estate. Don't get too excited. Anybody could have did that. Yep. Anybody could have done that. You could have made a mess of it. You had made money. Now we're going to find out who's the real deal, who can restructure debt, who can make stuff. And he's like, you're going to see everyone fall out. And that's exactly what we're seeing in that. So you got to be able to build businesses when it's quote unquote tough, and then just ride the wave when it's easy. If you're just getting by and you're just making money when it's good, you're going to get destroyed when it's tough. So that's the mindset I take, is good when it's tough. Good. Let's dig in. I'm ready for this. I've been to this. I've been in this war.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been in this foxhole.
Real estate business doesn't matter. It's been extremely easy to do it. And that's why it is so important right now that you get your mindset correct, because your mindset is going to dictate your actions. No, you can't have a positive mindset and you're going to get wealthy without the action portion. It takes both, one and two, the mindset, the positive thinking, and then it takes the implementation. And you got to get the mindset right. When things do get tough and you actually have to start working for it, that's why it's healthy for a reset in the economy, because it gets the fluff out of the way. And then the real players start to be able to consolidate. When everything's fragmented and a bunch of competition has entered the market, when times get rough, the real players are able to go scoop up all of their customers, and it starts to consolidate the market. And that's what the reset is. The money supply doesn't stop. The money's still out there in the market. It's just the hands that are not weak are able to grab it. It's the only difference.
Chris, let me ask you a question on this. We'll talk about fixed mindset and open mindset. A fixed mindset is you just know it. You already decided what it is. You can't even take new information in. We all know this person. You could tell them, you could show them evidence that that's not true, and they will not accept it because they've decided they're doing this. And then open mindset is you can have lots of opinions on things because you have taken in data, but you are open to new information, new experiences. So it's the guy who says he sees a musclehead guy. He's like, oh, he's on steroids. He's on roids.
Yeah.
What if he just works out all the time, eats really good, and makes money? Yes, there's people on steroids, but I know because the reason I know that is because my body has changed very different when I've done that. And I know people, but the people who say that haven't put in that work generally. All right. And I also know why my body changes, and maybe I gain weight and lose muscle. I know exactly what happened. I ate different. I didn't work out as hard. Maybe I had an injury or whatever. So if you take in, this is my question, Chris, do you know anyone with a truly open mindset that isn't doing well in life financially and happy with,
absolutely not.
I don't know anyone.
No.
I know a lot of people with fixed mindsets that are broke and kind of miserable. I'm not saying every person with an open mindset is doing great, but I just know so many who are doing great. And I know so many the other way. So just on that, why wouldn't you want an open mindset?
You need to constantly stay a student in life. because you'll never know it all. It's too vast. As soon as you start to forget you're a student, that's when you lose the opportunity for growth.
All you got to look back is, Chris, you're coming up on 40, I'm 51. If you go back 15 years and you talk to yourself, and that person said to you, hey, I already know everything, what would you'd be like, bro, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So what do you think we're going to tell ourselves in 15 years? It's not that we're going to say, hey, you weren't doing shit, man. You're going to say, I'm going to tell myself, man, you really didn't know what you know now. I want that to happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's not because the person knows it all. It's because they just don't take in new information. That would be scary.
Facts. So look, get your mind right. Make sure that you're protecting the influence around you. Make sure you're hanging out right with the right people. Level up. Pay to get into some rooms. It is not going to break you. The information that you will gain inside of those rooms, if the room is positive, and it is a business, it's a room of business owners, since we're talking to entrepreneurs mainly on this podcast. If you're getting in a room with business owners that are positive and solution driven, you will make multiples on top of your investment to get in that room. If y'all want to get more information and more opportunity around individuals like we've been talking about, then y'all hop on bluecollarmillionaire.net. Bluecollarmillionaire.net. And we have 2 opportunities where you can pay a little money to get in the right rooms so that you have the right mindset, you have the right techniques that you can go and implement, and you can be a king. You can be a blue collar millionaire in no matter what economy. The first opportunity is going to be Blue Collar Millionaire Accelerator. It's a $79 course where you get access to all of the stuff that me and Kevin, and then some additional stuff that has allowed us to have massive success in our businesses. Then you also get access to me and Kevin 2 hours a month inside of that cheap entry, plus all of those videos that you can watch at your own pace. If you want more activity, more access to me and Kevin, then you can get us for an hour live to answer your questions once a week inside of the Boardroom Elite group. That's a $500 for a limited time, $500 group to join. And that's where you get access to an hour with me and Kevin at the same time, where we just deep dive, and there's a bunch of other high-level entrepreneurs inside of the group. And if you've got a question that needs to be answered, your answer is going to be inside that group. So much resource. There's 0 reasons why you should be walking around broke. There's 0 reasons why you should be broke mentally, spiritually, financially. It is out there and available. The question is, are you willing to do the work to get it?
Absolutely. See you guys next week.